You're the most flamboyant, colourful pop star in all guises that we've probably ever had. How does that feel, to be that person, to be that iconic?
Well, I don't think you think about yourself in those terms, do you know what I mean? You don't sort of wake up in the morning and think, oh, I'm really iconic, you know? You kind of
I do.
Yeah, you do. Maybe I should start practising that principle. I guess I've grown up in public. You know, life is about learning to be who you are, whether you're famous or not. When
you hear your own stuff on the radio, do you start singing? Burst into Karma Chameleon?
No, there's too many other people doing that. It's one of those things that wherever I go in the world, everybody thinks like no one else has ever done it. So I'll come up and sing Karma Chameleon. And
Is it always that one? Always.
And I've had it, you know, in Moroccan carpet markets, I've had it at the pyramids, I've had it up the Himalayas.
We're coming to that. So over the years, George, you've had some pretty iconic looks. I want to talk you through some of them. We've got some pictures here. The first one's from the Jay Leno show in America, promoting the musical Taboo. What's the look you're going for there?
I think everything and the kitchen sink.
That's definitely you.
Are you sure it's me?
Yeah.
Not one of my best, is it?
It's interesting. The second one is you on holiday in Egypt.
Oh, yeah, that's better.
Yeah. You were actually wearing the hotel's plastic waste paper basket on your head.
Yeah, it was...
Why, I suppose, is the obvious question.
Well, I wanted to do this Nefertiti turban, and the only thing that was the right shape was this plastic waste paper bin, so I cut the bottom out, stuck it on my head and wrapped a turban around it. It was very effective.
When you look in the mirror now, are you happy with what comes back at you?
Happier, I think. Yeah, happier. Now that I've kind of taken control of what I eat and exercising and, you know, trying to kind of lead a kind of healthy lifestyle.
You're clean now, right?
I'm 9 years clean on March the 2nd, yeah. No kind of chemicals, alcohol or drugs.
9 years. You were born George Allen O'Dowd in South East London in 1961. Your parents were both of Irish descent. Your mum's Christina, or Dinah for short. Your dad was Jeremiah, known as Jerry. You've got 5 siblings, 4 brothers and 1 sister. What was the childhood like for you?
Well, it was, you know, extreme. My dad was quite an extreme man. My dad could lose his temper and, you know, chuck the entire Sunday dinner over and everybody went hungry. He was a gambler. He'd fly off the handle quite easily. But he was also extremely charismatic and funny. He was kind of a real contradiction. And it wasn't until I got to about 15, 16 that I realised how strong my mum was, you know, how she was kind of like a tank, because I didn't realise how much she struggled to keep the whole thing together. You know, my dad, he would gamble everything. So my mum would be out looking for what we used to call potluck stew, going round to the neighbours to see if she gets some scrag ends or whatever, going to the butcher's. So my mum kept the whole thing together. I saw some terrible things when I was very young. You know, lots of, you know, violent incidents and screaming and my mum was quite a strong... My mum was a very strong person. You know, so she would kind of... She would give as good as she'd get, but, you know, my dad did hit her.
Punched her?
Yeah. You know, my dad left my mum for another woman after 43 years, which made me very angry. But, you know, even after all of that humility that my dad put her through, you know, when he passed away, you know, she held a ceremony for him, sorry. And it was very moving. You know, to see that. It was very moving.
That power of forgiveness.
Yeah, she's an incredible woman. I didn't think I was going to cry. Yeah, it was, you know, because I remember her saying, I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for you, for your kids, which I knew was a lie. But I just thought it was incredibly gracious of her, you know, and it made me really love her. Not that I didn't already, but it made me really, really love her as a person.
When you were just 8 years old, your mother tried to take her own life.
Yeah, she took pills. I remember sort of, you know, keeping her awake and not really understanding what had happened. But, you know, the thing is, I used to tell my mum to leave my dad when I was, like, 9. I mean, I loved my father, don't get me wrong, I really loved him, but, you know, he wasn't a good dad and he wasn't a good husband.
Did he ever try to hit you?
Oh, he hit us all the time.
Punched?
Yeah, punched us. But everyone in the 70s punched you. It was just...
I never got... Nobody punched me.
Where did you live?
I'm not sure. It may be because you were around a lot of abuse. You've had this warped idea that this went on all the time. To me, it's very shocking that a father would punch a child.
It happened a lot.
But it's a highly abusive atmosphere, isn't it?
It wasn't always like that. Do you know what I mean? It was when it was bad, it was really bad, and when it was great, it was great. You know, and I look back at my childhood, and I think some things about it were brilliant, and some things about it were traumatic.
He didn't like being alone, your father. No. He'd even get you out of school. Yeah,
I used to go with him to work and go to betting shops, and I used to get, you know, that's how I got all my fashionable clothes. Saying, you know, because my dad would go gambling. And he'd say, don't tell your mother. So I'd get a pair of Vivienne Westwood bondage trousers. I was a fully-fledged glam rocker from the age of about 10. Trying to leave the house with makeup on wasn't... My dad wasn't having it. So there were quite a few times where I would sort of sneak to the front door in some sort of creation and be told to get back upstairs and put some sensible clothes on.
Do you want to discuss it?
Well, it's a homemade Boy George jacket, if you like. I just like to do things that kids can copy, you know. When we first started Culture Club, you know, I don't know if you ever saw, there were a lot of kids walking around with my hat and, you know, the same kind of hair. Because, you know, it's nice to be able to give kids something they can copy without costing them a fortune and, you know.
Will this cost anything? There are a lot of hotel
No,
keys
actually,
there.
safety pins... Actually, you never see advertisements for safety pins, do you? Because, you know, everybody has to use them. So they're one of the most practical things you could possibly wear. And it looks very, you know, doesn't it?
I'm sure it does. Now, you're back in the charts after a year. Now, why did you take time off?
I think it becomes like a marathon. People get bored with you. If you notice now at the moment, everybody's picking on Madonna. I mean, she probably hasn't done a thing wrong. You know, she probably just hasn't said anything, but everyone's moaning. Because people just get bored of you. You're in the papers every day. You know, you're photographed coming off the plane, you know, going to the toilet, you know, everything. It just becomes boring, so you have to take a break, really.
But the pressure was also on you, as well as...
Yeah, also, I think, you know, what happens is that you can ride the crest of a wave and your music can suffer. The quality of your music can suffer because you keep churning out records. So it's good to take a little break and concentrate, and also decide whether you want to continue. You know, I mean, after what I went through, I had to decide whether I wanted to go and hibernate for the rest of eternity. You know, sort of never do it again. But I obviously love what I'm doing, so here I am.
Did you miss it for that year?
I got so bored. You don't know what it's like for somebody like me to be told to sort of keep quiet, you know. You'll find out as we go along that I find it very hard to keep my mouth shut.
Keep quiet for a second. I want to... Now, Phil Collins was on the show a few weeks ago, and he was telling us about the part he played in Miami Vice, and you've been in the A-Team, is that right?
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, one thing I pride myself on is my honesty, and I am a terrible actor. So don't watch it.
Is it true you stormed off the set?
Oh, no, I don't do things like that. I don't have tantrums, no. No, what it was really, I mean, if I had to compare my acting to anyone, I'd compare it to the Laughing Policeman, you know. I mean, you know, to me, acting is like, you know, you're sort of tragic and you're throwing and crying and, you know, I mean, being myself is an acting, and also the A-Team. Sorry, I mean, no offence, but it's not really acting, is it?
Was it the director who stormed off the set, then?
I don't know. It's not really gone with the wind, you know.
So did you actually complete the episode or not?
Oh, I did, yeah, and I got paid lots of money for it, too.
Something for us to look forward to. You talked about you being cheap for the kids to copy what you do, but, I mean, is it expensive to be a trendsetter? You spend a huge amount on clothes?
Depends, really. I mean, depends what you define as fashion, really, as well, you know. I mean, I'll wear anything, as you can see. And, I mean, and I don't really care what people think, you know. I think that's really what fashion's about. My kind of fashion is just doing what you want, you know. If you want to go out with a pot on your head, do it, you know.
When you go home, you don't put on a cardi and slippers.
Yeah, I do, but it's a peculiar-looking cardi.
And 3 slippers, actually. Anyway, you did make a lot of money very quickly, didn't you? I mean, how have you handled it? Do you think you are irresponsible?
I would say that being wealthy is easier to handle than being poor. Wouldn't you agree? Everyone would agree. I mean, I certainly don't feel sorry for myself. It's something that you know, you learn to deal with and smile a lot about. I think it's nice to go without, though, because then you really do appreciate when you get money. You really appreciate it.
And you went without before?
No, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you know, I had to walk across hot coals or anything like that. I came from a pretty poorish family. We weren't rich, but it's nice to be able to sort of give my parents money now and, like, make them do things, go on holiday. You know, they're the nice things about being rich, you know.
Would you describe yourself as a romantic?
Yeah. I once saw this great T-shirt in New York which said, if you love somebody, let them go. If they don't come back, hunt them down and shoot them. So, you know, definitely definitely believe in love. I do almost anything for love, even kill.
Well, let's hope we don't fall in love. How important is physical attraction to you?
I think it's important to everybody. I mean, people do lie, you know. Everybody says, oh, I love her for her brains. But basically, I think, obviously, you know, when you initially meet somebody, it is the main factor. You look at them and you decide whether you like what you see. But, I mean, you know, like, for instance, if you're married to somebody for 40 years and they get fat, you don't just divorce them because they get fat. So I think, you know, I mean, people do underestimate what is sexually attractive, you know. I mean, often you see, like, a beautiful girl with an ugly guy and people say, why is she with him, vice versa. I mean, you know, that person may have something that you'll never have.
Money?
It may not be money. It could be something else. Let's not get rude here. You know, but basically, you know, I mean, there isn't any such thing as being perfect, you know.
Present company accepted. Are you in love at the moment?
With myself. No, yeah, I am. Yeah, definitely. But not with anyone in particular. With a lot of people.
People do conform eventually. I mean, even David Bowie has done that. Will you ever?
Poor thing. Waste of makeup. No, I really... That's like a neutralising question. It's like everybody says, are you going to get married? Because then they can all go and say, oh, he is really normal after all. Listen, he's just like the rest of us, you know, he does it for the money. You know, it's... I don't really want to be neutralised. I am what I am. You know.
Do you want to have children?
I think it'd be a bit difficult, don't you? I mean, we do have a bit of time on our hands, a few years, but I don't think they'll have developed it by then. No, but I understand what you mean. I would like to have kiddies, yeah, I would love to. Oh, isn't that sweet?
Well, I remember Eamon Andrews once asked an Irish writer, Brendan Behan, he said, what would you like people to say about you in 50 years' time? And he said, I'd like them to say I've just celebrated my 73rd birthday. And I wonder what you would like, what you think you might be doing in 40 years' time.
I hope I don't know what I'd like to be remembered for. Songs, mainly, you know. I mean, because I actually read something in the newspaper the other week which said, Boy George was nothing till he discovered mascara, which I felt very insulted because, you know, I write songs, and songs are wonderful. They take you back, they can bring back so many memories. And so that's what I'd like to be remembered for. Things like Do You Really Want to Hurt Me Time, good songs that give something to people and make people happy.
I can imagine, I mean, can I imagine what you would look like in 40 years' time? Are you going to be like that?
Hideous, probably. Well, I mean, everyone wants to grow up gracefully, but sometimes you just can't help it, you know.
Do you think this country is particularly supportive of people like you?
Oh, yeah. England's very... you know, we're definitely like a laboratory. We have all the best ideas, all the most exciting ideas. Unfortunately, what we do is we give them away to other countries. We don't capitalise on them, you know.
Did you feel different?
No, I didn't. I mean, you know, I kind of liked music and collecting jewellery and hanging out with girls. Wasn't so much interested in football and climbing trees or scrumping. So I was made to feel a bit like an outsider, but really around the time of finding Bowie was when I sort of went, because up until seeing Bowie, I didn't really know what was wrong with me. I was always made to feel like I wasn't the same as other kids, but I didn't really know why.
Did you know always that you were gay? Did you believe you were?
I knew that I was different when I was, like, 6 years old, but it wasn't until I got to about 10 or 11 that I realised, you know, that I was a gay man. And really all I ever heard in the 70s was insults about gay people.
Did you go through a period of slight doubt? Did you think, actually, maybe I'm straight? Or did you always think, no?
No. I never thought I was straight.
You never had a moment of reflection? No. When did you come out to your parents?
I was about 15, and I kind of told her that I'd been, you know, seeing this guy and things weren't going well, and kind of broke down a bit, cried to her.
Did she take it well?
I think that she was disappointed that I didn't tell her before. It was one of those weird things.
Do you think she knew? I mean, mothers always know, don't they?
Kind of, yeah, but we were so close all growing up, you know, that I think my mum was like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, well, it's not really something you can just say over Sunday dinner. Pass the salt, by the way, I'm gay.
And what about your father?
My dad was surprisingly cool about it. My dad sort of said, you know, you're still my son. I remember him kind of getting my shoulders and saying, these are all yours, but I actually had socks rolled up in my T-shirt.
Turn to David Bowie again. Let's have a look at you as a teen. You trying to emulate your hero. Pretty similar, actually.
Yeah, well, I was obsessed.
And you used to camp outside his house. Ever meet him in later years?
Yeah, we met a few times. We were in Mr. Chow's in New York. I was with him, Iman and Hedy Slimane from Yves Saint Laurent. And this guy came up and said, hey, it's my girlfriend's birthday. Will you guys come and sing happy birthday? And I was going to get up, because, you know, that's what I do. And Bowie was like, no, I don't think that would be appropriate. And I kind of slid back into my seat, thinking, oh, my God, how embarrassing. It was quite funny, and I was like, oops, OK.
What was he like? For those who didn't know the real Bowie.
Lovely. We talked about EastEnders, British tea.
What was Bowie's view of EastEnders?
You know, he missed it. He liked catching it when he was back in London. And we talked about Russian art films, of which I knew very little, so I was winging it a bit during that bit.
Another music legend that you knew very well was George Michael, of course.
He was my rival. He was called George. You know, he made soul music, so everything he did, you know, it was like we were kind of battling all the time, you know. The only time that we really got together was when friends tricked us, and there was this one particular night where the two girls in Bananarama invited me to a dinner at a Japanese restaurant, and he was there as well, and we had such a brilliant time. We had so much in common. But, you know, I suppose our egos wouldn't allow us to really be friends.
How close to death do you think you were?
I mean, I can't answer that question, you know. I mean, I was so in it, you know, that I couldn't have known, you know, I was an addict, and I had no control over what I was doing. I was so kind of lost in what was going on, you know, that it was impossible for me to have any kind of perspective.
When you saw your brother go on television,
yeah,
what did you feel at the time?
To be honest with you, at the time I was upset with him because, you know, it felt like he was betraying me, but obviously in hindsight, I know why he did it. I know, obviously, he had no choice, you know, but at the time, you know, I was, as I say, so involved in what I was doing. I was such an addict, I couldn't really understand, do you know what I mean, what was going on. I just couldn't see it at all.
Do you feel grateful now for what your brother did?
I have been very lucky because I have people that love me, you know. My family have always been amazing. I've put them through a lot, you know.
Your dad once camped outside your house to stop the drugs being dropped off.
Yeah.
He set fire to the living room to get you to speak about your problems. I mean, these were dramatic steps that people were taking.
It was, I locked myself in a room and my dad was trying to get me out, so he set fire to some clothes. I mean, it was insane. I mean, my mum moved into my house at one point, and when I did try to leave the house, she would stand in front of the door and cry, and I couldn't leave. So, you know, having her there was a good thing because it kind of, I couldn't go past her.
And she would presumably beg you to stop.
Yeah.
But you couldn't.
I waited, you know, till there was an opportunity, then I would sneak off. That's what addicts do. We're very conniving.
It wasn't just your family trying to help you. Richard Branson, obviously, was very attached to you. He organised you to go to rehab at his home in Oxfordshire.
I was really grateful. I mean, you know, Richard really tried to help me, you know, and I'll always thank him for that. You know, it was very sweet of him. He took me away from the glare of publicity, because obviously, you know, there were headlines, find him. There was like a hunt, and so Richard gave me a safe haven at his house, and that enabled me to, you know, try and get better. But I didn't really realise at the time how long a journey it was going to be.
You've never really talked about what happened that led to you going to prison. What do you want to say about it now?
It's a really difficult one, Piers, because when I was in court, I chose not to give evidence. I chose to just accept what was happening. And for me, you know, I felt that was the dignified thing to do. When I went to trial, I was a year clean, so I was already sober. So that person I was in court and the person that had been arrested, they were two different people. Plus, I just didn't want my mum to have to hear all this stuff in court. I just thought she's been through enough. I mean, I banned her from coming to the trial. But I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to accept it. I'm just going to accept the consequences of what happens. One of the things that people don't know is that I was prosecuted on my own evidence. I sent myself to prison. I told the police why I did what I did. Now, in hindsight, you know, I was having a psychotic episode. I was a drug addict. So I can't really sit here and say that my reasons for doing it were founded in any way. I wasn't insane. But I told the truth. I said, this is why I did it. You know, I was having a paranoid episode.
What do you accept happened that was just
I stopped him from leaving my apartment.
Right.
Yeah. So that I did that. You know, that was why I got done for.
Do you think that was worthy
That was terrible, what I did. And I'm absolutely ashamed and sorry about what I did. But, you know, it's been very difficult to talk about it. But what I did was wrong. You know, it was wrong. And I still pay the consequences for that now.
Have you ever said sorry for any of it?
I just did say sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to the guy, or...
Well...
Would you feel like you
know
want
what? I really don't think that it would make any difference. And I always felt like not talking about it was dignified. Because I thought, if I talk about it, I'm just going to hurt him. I'm just going to hurt the people I love. Where's the upside?
What was the worst thing about prison for you?
The worst thing was really my family, you know, like reading stuff in the press and just the thought that, you know, when I spoke to them on the phone, just they were really worried about me and I just was, like, worried about them. You know, you end up worrying about other people more than yourself. And actually, when I was in prison, you know, a lot of my friends, you know, kind of blew me away with, you know, they had friends that wrote to me every day. And
Stephen Fry wrote to you.
Stephen Fry wrote to me. I mean, you know, it was very humbling. You know, I knew that I'd kind of, you know, I'd kind of very aware that I'd messed things up really badly and that I knew I had a lot of work to do. And so I'd kind of made a decision that once I got through it, I was really going to put my life back together.
Your mother said that she felt instinctively this might be the best thing that ever happened to you.
The best thing that happened to me was getting sober. That no question. March the 2nd, 2008, my friend Tony Marnock rang me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just lying here, feeling sorry for myself." And he said, "Come to an NA meeting." And I was like, "I don't want to come to this meeting." And he was like, "No, I'm going to send a cab for you. You're coming." And thank God I went. Thank God I went.